Are we calling him a race dictator instead of a race director? Is that what we're saying? Call him King Jong-un. You dodgy bloke. Yes. This is the start of our new podcast, the one-stop pit stop podcast with your host, Umps and Dumps. Umps and Dumps. We'll just get straight into it. We're literally going to cover the whole of this season on the F1 circuit, starting right now, following the teams through their experiences, the ups, the downs, and everything in between. Without further ado, I welcome my brother, really. Would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, okay. So I'm Ronan. I'm Dumps.
Dumps. We're going hard with the Umps and Dumps. It stuck with us all this time. We're sticking with it. Right, yeah. So how was what are you thinking? Right. First of all, should we start with how last season ended? And what did you think of last season?
Last season was great. It was really competitive throughout the season. Max and Lewis fighting very, very hard to the last race. A lot of controversy, obviously, at the last race, the last lap, essentially. Yeah, and I think Lewis got robbed, like hands down. He was in control of the race. Started second, took Max off the line, stayed out in front by 8 seconds until Latifi binned it, turn 14, brought out the safety car. Max essentially had a free pit stop, changed the tyres. Lewis maintained track position, and essentially Michael Massey twisted the rules to allow one lap of racing.
Are we calling him a race dictator instead of a race director? Is that what we're saying? Call him King Jong-un. You dodgy bloke. Someone check his bank statements. Some dodgy money going into that account.
The procedures were not followed correctly. You can't say he's a cheat because there's a lot of pressure. He wanted to go racing for the last lap. He tried his best. Ultimately, he had all the team principals talking to him on the radio, trying to influence his decision just to allow racing. And I think Lewis was very hard done by.
So do you think the right person won the season overall?
No, not a chance.
Not a chance. So
I
you
think Lewis should have been the 8th world time champion. Yeah,
I'm the same. I think he got robbed. I'm going to be hands down. I think the best driver lost on that day, and that's the way I see
agree.
It. But is your anger more with the FIA or the race director at that point? Is it the FIA's failure in implementing the right sort of procedures in place so that stuff like this happens or doesn't happen, or is it all on the race director Massey?
To be honest, I don't understand why it went to the race director. Why didn't it go to the stewards? Because the stewards is essentially a democracy vote. Why did he choose essentially what was going on? Because for the entire season last season, basically he not overruled the stewards, but it was a dictatorship.
Yeah.
So I just don't understand why there's one guy calling the shots and not.
I think what also doesn't help is that he comes from a safety background, but yet in this one lap, this last sort of proportion of this race, he's decided to throw all his morals and where he's come from out the window and just sort of bend the rules as much as he can to go racing, as you said.
The thing is, last season, the last race, the World Championship and the Constructors' Championship on the line, and it was like the David versus Goliath fight, essentially. And it had so many viewers across the world, and it was like record-breaking numbers. And if the race ended under a safety car,
it wouldn't have been good.
It would have been so
disappointing, I think.
Anticlimactic.
Yeah,
there had to be this showdown in the desert,
So it would have been better if they, after he'd binned it into the wall, and sort of red flag it.
They should have gone red flag. Everyone had a change of tires, and then just gone for a restart off the grid.
I think the problem we got is that we got the sort of
the hindsight
in our favor, and it's sort of at that time when you got all these drivers and race officials trying to find out what's happening, and to be honest, he probably didn't even know himself at some point. He's there rehearsing his lines, trying to read up on the rules midway because he ain't got I don't think he had a clue, to be honest. I don't think anyone did. So he just made it up as he gone along, and ultimately he's been sacked and he in the bin now. In the bin, he don't want none of that. Should we get into this season then? Because ultimately we're going to be don't worry about last season. Lewis, you're back now. Stop crying. You know what I mean? I reckon he's got a good chance this season. So should we start with the new cars then? Should we? This season, new cars. What have you seen, and what are you liking the look of?
So these new cars, there's a lot that's changed. Essentially, the cars are more sleek, more crisp looking. There's less bodywork around the sides of the cars. There's no barge boards. There's less wing sort of turbulent air for cars to follow. So all the air that goes over the cars now is directed to straight up, so cars can follow closely. And they use downforce from the floor of the cars, so it's called ground effect. And essentially, what it creates is a low pressure system below the car because all the air is getting sucked around it and over it, and it's like a vacuum and it holds the car.
So it sinks to the ground almost.
Yeah, exactly. And then you've also got the brand new 18-inch wheels as well, which is going to play a massive part.
I think a few of the drivers have been commenting that they're unable to see over these massive wheels. They're struggling to.
But hopefully it'll allow us to go quicker.
Yes, definitely. That's the aim.
Because that's what we want to see. We want to see them on the ragged edge.
I think we want to see more action. Will these cars, or potentially what you've seen, will these cars allow for better action between one another, or is it going to be one team all the way?
I think it's too early to call, but I think the design of the cars certainly look as if they're going to give us action the entire way, and that hopefully it becomes more of a driver's ability championship rather than an engineering ability. However, that will still play a massive effect because the development of these new cars, everything is brand new on these cars.
No one has
all the suspension, all the flows, all the aerodynamics, the power unit's predominantly the same, but there's going to be a lot of change this season.
Yeah, compared to last year, they just look a lot beefier, as in a lot. Just looking at a sort of first glance, it just looks a lot more beefier, a lot more. I think last year it almost looks like the little brother, big brother, and that's what it looks like.
Yeah, I agree.
Before my eyes, the bigger wheels, and everything. But I suppose that's the evolution in F1. We're sort of going into that next evolution of racing, really, where, you go back in the 60s, you had these small little cars, gone into what it is or what it has been, and going into this season now, with the back wing being curved and everything. I do like the look of that, and I'm hoping that the racing gets a lot more entertaining, and
hopefully.
yeah. So what team cars do you like the look of? Because we've had about 6 release. What team?
Yeah, so far Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, McLaren, Aston Martin, Williams, and Haas have all launched their cars. We're waiting on Alfa Romeo and Alpine. So far, the best looking car to me is the Williams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What makes
I think,
it?
I don't know that. I think the livery is it's popping.
Do you like the color green? Do you?
That's Aston Martin, you faggot.
Oh, I got my cars.
Let's
have a look. I'm gonna have to go. Hang on, wait. Williams car F. Have I just done I've the first podcast, and I've already done a melt. Oh, here we go. This blue thing, this white and blue thing. What do you like the look on this? It looks, looking at the front wing, it looks similar to actually, they've got a lifted off the front nose. They're not the same as Mercedes. Mercedes' front wing is all connected from the point, so their nose is their first point out. But with this one, it seems to have a more of a last year's nose to it.
Yeah, I really like the look of the F1, that car, the Williams F1 car.
Yeah,
it looks mean. It looks, the colors just sit well together, I think.
So you're expecting them to do well this year?
I'm hoping so, for the sake of like British motorsport.
Yeah.
But it's essentially everyone's back to zero. Everyone's starting in the same place, essentially, with the cost cap now coming in. They have new cars from scratch.
Yeah.
And
they also get restricted wind tunnel time and stuff. There's a lot more regulations being put on this year, which I think is good for the sport, because definitely for the last 8 years, there's been whoever had the most money sort of won it, essentially. But
yeah, exactly. So with wind tunnel times, it's essentially the higher up on the previous season leaderboard you finished, the less wind tunnel time you get in development for the next season.
Right.
So obviously Mercedes would have had a lot less time than, say, Williams, who are further back on the
it's definitely grid. Good. Obviously the F1 itself wants a more competitive league, essentially. Definitely. But for me, I'm liking the look of the Ferrari, to be honest. I like that donut shape. I don't know why. It's a bold move. And I think it's there so that when the air travels over, it sort of sinks the car more to the ground again.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I'm not sure. When I seen the front view of that Ferrari, I just thought it looked similar to the Millennium Falcon or a donut, and I wasn't
definitely
too keen.
It's got a ring around it. It's got a ring. It's got a ring to it, doesn't it?
If you like it, you got to put a ring on it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's maybe it's their year. Maybe it's time for them to climb back up the rankings and get back to where they should be. But they have been underperforming.
Be nice to see them fighting for a title again.
Yeah, or at least fighting for something. That'd be great.
They haven't been doing much.
What let's talk about drivers then. Let's talk about some of them move in. What do you think of that then? Bottas move in, Lewis stay in.
Yeah,
is another one.
Yeah, so Mercedes, you've got an outstanding all British driver lineup. So you've got George and Lewis. Lewis returning has done a a great publicity stunt, basically, for F1. And hang on.
We'll take this time to bring you the sponsor of this podcast. Nothing. We haven't got one.
Nothing. Nobody.
We haven't got one. But if there's anyone out there, whilst he's there with a missus,
please advertise here.
Yeah, drop sponsor your editor. I'll be on that later. But anyway, talk about this Mercedes or British lineup as you. I'm sure there's a picture circulating of Lewis when he was world champion, and his partner when he was 10 years old behind him. Have you not seen that? That's definitely something you have to watch. But there's a lot of that coming out where sort of young F1 drivers are sort of meeting their heroes as their babies, essentially, and then lucky enough to be able to share the stage with them. But we'll get back to this. What do you think about? So we touched on Mercedes a little bit. Do you think there'll be no title run-ins this year, or is it too early still?
They have to be. Like, there's no other option for Mercedes. They have to be in the title.
It's win or die trying, is it?
Yeah, they've got 8 World Constructors Championships. They've got to go for 9 and make history. No other teams done 8. They got to go for 9, and Lewis wants his 8th world title. So
yeah. All right, that's definitely. Well, what about Red Bull? Should we go straight on to Red Bull and their movements?
Yeah, Red Bull have stuck with their lineup with Perez and Verstappen. Perez last season playing the ultimate wingman.
Yeah,
literally trying to hold up Lewis as much as he can. And
is Max then?
You could call Verstappen. You could call Verstappen a world champion.
Yeah, if I was Verstappen, I'd feel sort of it's a win, but it's not a win. It's given.
Yeah,
it wouldn't feel as satisfying as if you would have won it in more of a manner of how we won some of the other races that season. And I think that's, well, at the end of the day, he's probably had a healthy bonus and everything, and everyone's
then on the flip side,
you know.
On the flip side, I mean, Verstappen, the race, the championship is decided over 21 races, and for it to come down to the last race, there had to be, like, he won 10 races last year. So
I'm sure he led Lewis Hamilton for most of them races. You know, I think the stats are all in his favor, but Lewis, just overtook him when needed, or took him out in some races. So let's go. What team do you want to jump onto now? Let's go on to Williams. You mentioned him just now.
Yeah. Okay. So we moved to Williams. So Alex Albon is now coming back in to Formula One, having taken a break from the Red Bull teams, and then he's partnered with Latifi. So he received a lot of death threats after the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, having crashed into M14. But yeah, he's partnering Albon as George has moved on to bigger and better things in Mercedes, hopefully.
Yeah. That's a fair. Should we move on now to McLaren? And I would say, arguably, they have the strongest two. Would you agree?
Ooh, do you think? So I think George and Lewis is the strongest pairing.
Yeah.
But Ricciardo and Norris.
It just seems more of a 50. I think Lando is still their number one driver, but I think it's more 60-40 split than a Mercedes 90-10 split, as in sort of who's their number one driver in that sense.
I always wanted to see McLaren do well, and last season they actually snuck a win as well. So,
could you see McLaren winning another race this year?
Yes.
Yes, definitely. Who would you want to be on out of the two drivers that you have? Lando or Daniel?
Norris,
yeah.
Norris, yeah.
Seems like a good egg, that one. Let's go to Alpine then. It sounds like something from the forest, but let's go in. We got Ocon and Alonso. So what are you thinking about that?
So Alonso's got a wealth of experience, and then Ocon has had a few seasons in Formula One now. So it'd be interesting to see what Alonso can do to develop that car with all his knowledge, to see if they can make it competitive to fight at the front.
I'm sure you heard something saying that they dedicated a lot of last year's time, not on last year's car, but for the future for this car. So I'm expecting big things from Alpine. Definitely better from last season, but maybe that's something to look out for.
From halfway through the last season, most teams sort of seem to stop developing their cars or bring upgrades, and they just focus on the 2022 car because there's such a drastic regulation change.
Yeah, definitely. Something had to be done anyway. Let's go on to Haas with Mickey Schumacher and Mazapan. Come on, my son. What are you thinking?
Mazepin.
Yeah. It hasn't gone down great for him since that. What are you saying?
His Formula One debut hasn't gone well. I think he's spent more time in the walls or spun out than, I don't know.
So is that because he's unable to control the car? Is that because it's just, he's young, he's new, he's sort of getting his feet in the water? What are you thinking?
I don't know. I think the cars are incredibly difficult to drive. It's hard to say. Like, the conditions, they're changing all the time on track, so you can't
predict.
Put it down to his ability or the car. There's multiple factors.
Well, I suppose Haas is a new team essentially compared to a lot of the other well-established ones.
Yeah.
But what do you see them doing better this year, or are they going to be back of the grid? Or do you see any of them picking up, a podium up or anything of that sort? Or do you think they're sort of mid-table or even worse?
So Haas are a mid-table team, or sort of, the best of the rest, because you'll have the Mercedes, the Ferrari, and the Red Bull top three teams. Yeah. This is talking from previous seasons. And then best of the rest, you'd have the McLarens, the Haas, the Alpha Tauris, all battling for like 5th, 6th, 7th place on a Grand Prix weekend. Basically to pick up as much points throughout the season, just to tip a rival in the Constructors' Championship at the end of the year.
Right, let's swiftly move on to Alfa Romeo with their new number one driver, I'd say, in Bottas. What are you thinking? What do you see them doing better? Has Bottas gone there to win stuff, or has he gone there for a paycheck?
Bottas didn't have a seat, I'm guessing he's frantically looking around, or his agent was frantically looking around for a seat to put him in this season. Be interesting to see what he can do in a new car.
It's a bit weird though, considering the cars are meant to be the same, but him and Lewis's performances was chalk and cheese. On an average day, Lewis would beat him 9/10 of the time. So I don't know whether he didn't get on with the car last season, or whether his ability isn't matched to Lewis's.
I think all F1 cars drive differently, and the Lewis and Bottas have two very different driving styles. And I think since Lewis has been at the team and been the number one driver for so long, they've developed the car around him. Yeah. So when they've made the two cars, and when Bottas has got in and he's tried to adapt his driving or try and develop the car his way. It's just not.
It's not him.
The package just hasn't suited his driving, or he just couldn't get on with the car or consistently deliver.
Yeah, definitely. Should we mention the other bloke as well?
I have no idea who he is and where he's come from.
Zoho is Guan Yu. Zoho. Let's just hope him best for the future. We'll mention him again. Definitely. We'll have to give it a look. See what happens in the next now. What about AlphaTauri then? AlphaTauri. Well, what are you thinking?
AlphaTauri.
The Red Bull spin
Gasly and Tsunoda. Gasly's been driving the absolute wheels off that AlphaTauri in the last couple of seasons since he got relegated from the Red Bull seat. Back to AlphaTauri, and he's been driving really well, and it'd be interesting to see what he can do.
Do you see AlphaTauri doing anything crazy this year, in a sense of picking up a podium, or considering they are a Red Bull sort of sister, then let's say then as a company, do you see them sort of emulating anything that Red Bull have gone on to do, or at least picking up the right credentials to get there, maybe?
Yeah, 100%. Everyone's got a chance to get on the podium this season, I think. Just because everyone's starting from zero. There's 23 races this season, and there's 3 spots on the podium each time.
Yeah.
There's
quick maths.
Going to be safety cars. There's going to be crashes at turn ones in multiple circuits. The circuits this season that we haven't raced on before.
Yeah.
So,
well,
the opportunity is there.
The opportunity is there for everyone, I think, and I hope there's more of a mix of racers on the podium this year. I don't want it to be stale as what it has been. You know, it before going into most races, you sort of tend to have a gut feeling of who was going to be on the podium. I'm hoping there's a bit of a mix this year.
Yeah,
bit of upset, bit of controversy. We like to see it. We'll be documenting it all here on the Pitstop podcast. We'll put a bit of promo in it. So going on to testing, February the 23rd to the 25th. How do you see this going down?
So there's a lot of speculation in the F1 fans world, essentially, that there's two sets of testing this season. The first set is in Spain, and that's not broadcasted. It's that you don't even get to see the live times of the cars, and it's literally I think just to protect the F1 brand, because cars will break down and ultimately crash for some reason, and because there's so much change, they didn't want to damage the F1 brand, which is understandable.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a shakedown. And then they go to the actual testing then. And that's 3 days again. So this season is 6 days of testing.
So are they then starting the testing on the 20th instead of the 23rd? And behind closed doors. So they're getting their own sort of testing before the main one.
No, so that you have the first test from the 23rd to the 25th, and that's in Spain. And then you have the official tested in March, and that's the 10th to the 12th. And that's in Bahrain before the Bahrain.
So we're not going to see
the following week.
Yes. How and then we go straight into the calendar a week after then.
Yeah. And the first Grand Prix is Bahrain. So hopefully the cars will have a lot of data from the testing, and then obviously the Grand Prix weekend the following week in the same location.
Yes, definitely. We'll be covering everything, all the action and races here on the Pitstop podcast. Pop that in again. But definitely we'll cover everything we need. Is there anything else that you've can think of on the top of your head? No, we've gone.
So
Yeah.
The only thing we haven't mentioned this season is the sprint qualifying. So
they've changed it, didn't they?
Yeah. So last season there was I think there was 6, and they wanted to bring 6 forward into this season. However, the teams sort of
they opted against it, didn't they?
Yeah, they opted
get
against
out
it. They
of here.
rallied together.
Costs
and they
too much money.
Yeah,
price
exactly.
of petrol, £1.50. I don't think
That's what
they
they're
can't
saying.
accommodate that on this £50 million budget. Are you mad?
Yeah, so because of the cost caps, they've only opted for 3 sprint qualifying this season. So
okay, so
that'd be interesting.
Definitely. Is there any other news that you thought of? Oh, new race directors. They've sacked him off. He's gone. Oh well, he's been offered a new role that that we're unaware of and we haven't been told.
That nobody knows about.
And we brought in 2 new people. What do you think of these appointments? You know what? I would try and mention these names, but I'm, do I even try?
You're a brave man if you do. I don't want to butcher anyone's name.
What do you think of the appointments of having 2 alternating then?
So essentially, there's still one race director. They're just going to alternate weekends or race weekends. But what they have brought in is like a virtual FIA referee, essentially, like VAR, a TMO in rugby TMO or VAR in football. Yeah, and that's almost to aid the race director in making decisions and to hold him to account, basically, with the decisions he's made over a Grand Prix. And I think that's been a key aspect to why Hamilton has come back this season, because he didn't want to race under the same conditions in which they robbed his title from him, essentially. Yeah. Mercedes wanted change for the new season, and they've got it for the better of Formula One.
Is that more important then than sort of anything for Mercedes wise, and probably for the sport, that this implication of, I'm going to try and say these names, Niels Wittich and Eduardo Freitas? That's all right. That sounds good to me. Hey, hey, I would too bad. I've replaced Michael Marcy. So, he was race director for 3 years of Formula One, and ultimately he's paid the price, but let's not beat around the bush.
They had to have something been seen to have done something, haven't they? Like, they can't. Yeah. After such controversy, they couldn't stay the same. There has to be a change.
Does this then ultimately prove that the race director and that sort of how it ended last season, that ultimately Lewis should be a champion, as the FA sort of agreed now that what happened was inhumane or unsportsmanlike to the race in F1? It sort of does put a blanket on it. It does sort of accept the fact that they've sort of
accepted what had happened wasn't entirely fair. The rules weren't followed to the letter of the law. But
I suppose it's just get on with it.
They haven't admitted it publicly, so they put new precautions in place so anything like this should never happen again.
Yeah, which I think ultimately that's more important than sort of banging on about history, essentially, because we all know Lewis is going to get there, but it's whether. But I'd rather more of a competitive race this season going forward and seeing more of the controversy. I like it when they crash. I hate to say it, but I do like it when I do like the controversy and everything in between. But we're going to be here covering it all on the Pitstop podcast with your hosts, Umps and Dumps.
You're all weak.
We're always gonna laugh at that. We'll have to explain the story in another podcast future down the line. But what race What race circuit are you looking forward to? What race circuit out of the whole calendar?
Oh, there's so many. Being British, I'm going to say the Silverstone Grand Prix, only because I think it's such a quick track. Bigger tyres hopefully means more grip. Hopefully can go faster. Yeah, I just think Silverstone with these new cars is going to be epic.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
For me, there's two I'm looking forward to. So one is Monaco, and I think every F1 fan looks forward to that one on the racing calendar. And there's another one, the United States one. It was a new track, so it's a new track because it came in last season.
The Miami track.
Yeah, it's a new. Well, we know a little bit about it. It sort of has two sort of long straights. And I'm just interested to see how these new cars perform in it, to be honest. And they've signed a deal, I believe, till 2026. So we are definitely going to see it for another 4 years, which is good.
That's
good for the sport and motorsport. But
hopefully with Monaco, with the cars being so competitive, and Monaco's round
crazy.
Round 7. Hopefully it's going to be. Qualifying is going to be insane with cars absolutely ripping it up around Monaco.
Okay,
to get on pole.
Definitely like to. Well, we'll be covering everything on the Pitstop podcast.
All right, then, to finish off, who do you think's going to win the Constructors' Championship and the Drivers' title?
Constructors.
Give me your predictions.
Okay. For me, Mercedes is going to win the Constructors, and then the Drivers. No, I'm going to change it. I'm going to have Lewis win the Constructors. I'm changing it. I'm having Lewis win the Constructors, but Ferrari win
drivers.
No, the Drivers, and then Ferrari win the Constructors. I like this donut. Maybe I'm hungry. What's your thought?
That's bold, because I was thinking exactly the same.
Is it? We both got Ferrari to win the. Are we saying this here now? We put £1 on it in the bookies to see what we get back. And I bet you will lose £1.
Yeah, I was thinking Lewis for the 8th title and Ferrari to win the Constructors.
Yeah, for me it's Ferrari or McLaren. But that's just a prediction. We don't know nothing about these cars. I've only seen what I've seen. I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard the engines yet. But we'll see how it goes on, and we keep you guys up to date with everything that goes on in the F1 season. Is there anything you want to say before we head off?
No, I look forward to watching the testing.
Definitely. So you heard it here first at the Pitstop podcast. We'll be back again next week. Like, share, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. And hopefully we'll be going racing soon.